Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here preaching the daily analysis of the Hindu from 31st of December 2024. So this is a QR code where you can basically find this particular PDF along with the other material that is required for your preparation. So what all topics we have taken for today's analysis? First, NSQ drugs, grounds for divorce, UPI duopoly and other aspects that we're going to see. Next, Spadex mission, private member bill, Vembanad Lake and Pangong Lake. So these were all mentioned in today's newspaper. So let's analyze them and see the various dimensions associated with that. Main topics. First, states and the danger of poorly manufactured drugs. Now see, when I mentioned about the NSQ drugs, the full form is not of standard quality drugs. NSQ means not of standard quality. Now see, you need to analyze and understand that there are a lot of things mentioned here, but they are basically confined to certain major themes. So when I am going to discuss this in the further topics, we are covering not only what is mentioned here, but also the other dimensions related to the topic. So this particular article mentions about the not so quality drugs, which are not of standard quality. So what are the reasons behind it? What are the dimensions associated with that? What are the regulatory dimensions associated with it? Basically comes into limelight. So we will be covering a holistic picture. Let's see and analyze what are the dimensions. So whenever you read, please understand the word NSQ, not of standard quality. This is basically a classification that is given under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. Now there are various other type of classifications also that are there. You should be knowing that because can be asked in your prelims, and for that matter means also they can ask sometimes very tricky questions. So when I talk about not of standard quality NSQ drugs, it means it fails to meet the quality standards or specifications defined in the Act. So that means whatever specifications have been defined in this particular Act, Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, the drug is failing to meet the quality standards. Then you have another dimensions, because why I'm defining these, so you should be able to differentiate between NSQ drugs and the other drugs. Spurious drugs, imported under another drug's name, imitation or substitute for another drugs, hiding the true identity, bears name of fictitious or non-existing manufacturer. So all these characteristics are defining any of these characteristics, or all of these characteristics will come under the definition of spurious drugs. So again, imported under another drug's name. It is imported under drug's name, but doing certain other tasks. That means a constituent or the API of a drug is different. Next is imitation or substitute for another drug, hiding the true identity. Bears the name of fictitious or non-existing manufacturer. So that means writing a name of a manufacturer that does not exist. Substituted by another drug or substance, purports to be product of a manufacturer of whom it is not truly a product. So that means it is showing that it is manufactured by one particular company, but it is not of that company. So it will be coming under the category of a spurious drug. Now, any particular statement can be picked up and put in your prelims, or let us say mains also. They can ask you the classification. Let us say prelims. They can put one statement and say which among the following points are basically defining this characteristics. They will put NSQ, spurious, misbranded, adulterated. In that case, you should be knowing these characteristics well. Misbranded drug, so colored, coated, powdered or polished that damage is concealed or made to appear of greater therapeutic value than they really are. So any drug which is, I think, coated, or it is self-explanatory also, colored or coated in such a way that it appears to be of a greater significance, a greater value than it is providing to the patient who is consuming the drug. Next is not labeled in the prescribed manner. So it is not labeled in a proper manner. Label marks any false or misleading claims for the drugs. So any drug which says that, okay, this is a drug, you eat it and your color of your hair will become black instead of graying or whitening. So what is that? That is misguiding or misadvertisement that is being done. So these things also will be under the misbranded drugs. Next is adulterated drugs. Consist of any filthy, putrid or decomposed substance. So any something that is again filthy, not pure, or let us say dirty. So these things will basically come under these. Prepared, packed or stored under insanitary conditions. So where it is being manufactured is not good. Let us say basically those fake drugs that are created are again manufactured in small rooms or small workshops, and they are manufactured in insanitary conditions also. Container is composed of any poisoned or deleterious substance. Bears a color other than the prescribed one. contains any harmful or toxic substance, mixed with any other substance that reduces its quality or strength. So these are basically what the four classifications of with respect to any fraudulent practices or bad quality drugs and all, but these specifically characteristics that are mentioned over here are prescribed under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. So you should be able to differentiate between an NSQ drug, spurious drug, misbranded drug, and adulterated drug. This is very, very important. Now, moving ahead. See, when I talk about the drugs sector, or for that matter over here, we also talk about the cosmetics also. They come under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. Now, there are various key authorities that are associated in this particular sector which approve those drugs in medicines in simple words, or the drugs to be more precise. And we should be knowing them because they are the ones who are regulating this particular sector, pharma sector also. Let's see. Central Drug Standard Control Organization, CDSCO. The CDSCO is a regulatory body responsible for regulation and control of import, manufacture, sale of drugs in India. It operates under the Ministry of Health. It is not a statutory body. So please understand, any import, any manufacture, or any sale of drugs will be done under the permission of CDSCO. This is something very important, a very important regulatory body. Now, Drug Controller General of India, DCGI, is the head of CDSCO. This body is headed by a particular person who is the Drug Controller General of India. Now serves as a principal regulatory authority for drugs in India. DCGI is responsible for granting licensing for the import, manufacture, sale of drugs, as well as monitoring their safety, quality, and the efficacy. Efficacy means, are the drugs effective also? Next, Drug Technical Advisory Board, DTAB. Now this DTAB is an advisory body that provides technical assistance to DCGI on matters related to drug regulation. Now please understand, we can understand that DC and Drug Controller General of India might be a very technical man, might not be. He might be an IS officer also. Now what happens is, because of that, there is a possibility, he can be a doctor also for that matter, there's a possibility that certain technical aspects associated with the position that is being granted or being dealt with certain drugs might not be very clear to the DCGI also. In that case, they have this advisory board which basically sees all the technical dimension. Experts are there with respect to the pharmaceutical sector also, and then they suggest the DCGI, or for that matter CDSCO also, that what should be done, whether the license should be given, or these are again a recommendatory body. So provides technical advice to DCGI, and matters related to drug regulation consist of experts from the various fields including medicine, pharma, and toxicology. So this is again a body which has technical people inside as our members. Drug Consultative Committee, DCC. DCC is another advisory body that assists the DCGI in formulating policies and regulations concerning the drug control. Again, it has experts from various aspects, but it can be doctors, pharmaceutical sector, even toxicology sector, bureaucrats also, along with the DCGI also. So again, these are a consultative committee which advise the DCGI on making or framing the policies. Next is State Drug Regulatory Authorities, which are statutory bodies again created under Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940, regulate the drug policies at the state level. Falling under the ambit of the respective health departments of each state, SDRAs are tasked with the aspects of drug regulation at their particular state level, right? So it is created by the Drugs and Cosmetics Act only, and they are under the ambit of what? The health department of the respective states. So now what we have done, first is something, the topic that was there, we have dealt with the various dimensions associated with that. Now we have seen the regulatory aspects. Please understand, when we were reading this editorial also, there are a lot of things that are mentioned which you might not be aware of. That is why we are going into detail and understanding it. So these classification, and then what is the regulatory mechanism. Now the question arises, what is the reason for these inadequate quality or inadequate standards of drugs being there prevalent in the market? This question will become very important. Now see what are the reasons behind it. See, lack of adequate regulation and enforcement. Just now when I mentioned about the regulation aspect, you know that very well. I showed you the whole structure of the authorities that are concerned over here. But now there are loopholes over there also. See, India's drug regulation is governed by the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. You already know that. That has been informed to you in prior, which is outdated and inadequate to deal with the complexities and challenge of the modern day pharmaceutical sector. How? See this. The Act does not cover many aspects like clinical trials, bioequivalence studies, good manufacturing practices, etc., which are essential for the quality and safety of the drugs. That means one drug which is equivalent to uh, its essentiality or with respect to its role being performed. We over there it is those dimensions when we have to study, or let us say bioequivalence mechanisms that you have to study. You realize that many things or new things that are coming up with respect to the pharmaceutical sector are not being covered. It is still governed by an antiquated 1960 law. Now, moreover, the enforcement of the act is weak and fragmented as it involves multiple authorities at the state and the central level with the overlapping jurisdiction. We will be studying this in detail also when I'll be giving you the reference of the article. So what is going on? Firstly, the lack of adequate regulation is that the act that is governing is 1960. Do you realize that now various types of medicines, various vaccines, so many companies have come up during that time? The government was a major player. Now private sector has come up. You know that so many changes have been there in the pharmaceutical sector. We need a revamping of this particular act. There are a lot of structural and functional issues also, which we will cover in the future also right now. The problem over here is that due to multiplicity and those things which are currently in practice in the pharmaceutical sector, various dimensions are not being covered. When they are not covered, then what happens? The authorities that are present over here, whether at the state level or whether at the central level, they are not able to understand under whose gamut it is going to lie. And that is why no action takes place, and there is again delays with respect to any, let us say, even a private company with respect to pharmaceutical coming, or let us say a proper regulation that has to be done. So again, what are the delays come up? This is not only good for the investment aspect also, but on the other hand, because various drugs we understand that are important for the health dimensions also, which get delayed, the approvals get delayed. Along with it, please understand, because of these also various loopholes that have come up, and that is why the various pharmaceutical companies in the private sector also tend to misuse it, because there is no proper law regulating it also. We have the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, but there are again various dimensions as we studied, the bioequivalence, good manufacturing practices, clinical trials, all these things are not covered in this act. It provides a breeding ground for misuse of the act also, because those are not covered. That what is creates a lot of problem. Now next is inadequate resources. Now what happens is there's shortage of manpower, infrastructure, funds, technology to carry effective inspection, testing and monitoring and surveillance of the drug manufacturing units. You realize that if you take an example of, let us say, the region of Haridwar, the region of Selakui in Dehradun, you realize because of the tax holidays, that means a regime where minimal taxation has been given by the Uttarakhand government, large number of pharmaceutical companies have basically come up. Large number. So what happens is that such large number of pharmaceutical companies coming up leads to large number of people being involved working there. The government does not have large number of manpower also to inspect all of them. So this basically leads to many times misuse of their power by the pharmaceutical industry, and that is why ineffective regulation also is an outcome of that. And then possibility of having poor quality standard drugs can be a reason. You can have come across reason where unhygienic conditions might be there. Along with it, you see the best of the practices might not be adopted because the pharmaceutical companies are basically again corporates who are aiming at reduction of their cost. Adherence to the regulation basically escalates the cost which they try to avoid. So inadequate resources, lack of transparency and accountability. The drug regulator, the CDSCO, does not disclose much information about its activities, processes, outcomes to the public or the media. There is no mechanism to evaluate its performance or the impact on curbing substandard or spurious drugs. There is also no mechanism to ensure that regulator is independent, impartial, or free from the external influence or from the pressure from the government or, for that matter, the pharmaceutical industry itself. So there have been allegations of corruption, collusion, conflict of interest among the officials in this regulator itself. So what it comes out to be? It comes out to be that there's a possibility that the body itself who is giving licensing, approving the manufacture, approving the sale, approving the import, if certain corruption breeds in, it is going to result in what? Substandard drugs coming in the market. That is what is a proper issue that is being concerned over here. Now see, next is lack of awareness and compliance among the pharmaceutical companies. Some pharma companies in India do not adhere to prescribed standards or norms for manufacturing, testing or labeling, packaging or storing or distributing these drugs. Now, some pharma companies also resort to unethical and illegal practices like using counterfeit, adulterating, diluting the drug, falsifying, manipulating data or documents to cut the cost and increase the profits. Automatically will result in substandard drugs. And NSQ drugs would be an outcome of that, along with it, the other classifications also that we gave. Now understand this. Article along with these things mentioned one more thing. Now let us say this. Let us assume there is a pharmaceutical company. This is, let us say, West Bengal. Now supposingly in West Bengal, and let us say this is Gujarat, let us say Maharashtra. Now supposingly there is a company which is manufacturing drugs. Let us say pharma company, let us put it as PC1, right? PC1. Now it is what it is doing. It is manufacturing a drug. Manufacturing a drug. Name being, let the name be D1, right? Now see, now this is a drug which is being manufactured by pharmaceutical company PC1. Now, under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, because it is being manufactured by West Bengal, you can even send it to the other parts of the states also. Again, there is restriction is not there. Let us assume this is going to various states. Let's take one example of it going to Maharashtra also. Right? Now it is going to Maharashtra. Now in Maharashtra, the drug that is being manufactured, let us say, assume that is related to, let us say, blood pressure, whatever be the drug. Now this drug will be sold in what? Maharashtra. In now D1 is, now D1 in Maharashtra is being sold via chemist shops, right? Chemist shops. Now please understand. When this is being stored, there is a problem in the Drugs and Cosmetics Act that over here, if this is found to be, if this is found to be, let us say NSQ, or let us say a spurious, or let us say adulterated, or let us say misbranded, whatever, etc. The inspector in Maharashtra cannot cancel the license. Please understand this. There is a problem with the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. A drug being manufactured in one state is being sent to another state. And over there, let us say a inspector comes and say checks or verifies it, let us assume, and he finds that this is NSQ of not of standard quality. That inspector does not have the authority to cancel the license of the drugs because it was being manufactured in some other state. Only the inspectors or the concerned authorities where the drug is being manufactured can only take action against the company it is being manufactured in that particular state. If it is being manufactured in one state and being sent to another state, the inspectors of that particular state cannot take action against cancellation of the license of which pharmaceutical company? PC1. And what happens because of that? There is problem with respect to being manufactured in one state, being sold in the other state, but the action can only be taken by West Bengal inspectors or the concerned authorities. That leads to a major problem. Yes, a criminal case can be done against a company in this state, but we very well know that it takes 10, 20 years when the pharmaceutical companies are involved. Till that time, they're manufacturing their drugs, nothing happens. This is what was another major concern that was basically quoted in the editorial which we read. In today's time, again, what is the recommendation? The recommendation, if you want to see, is complete revamping of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940 needs to be done. Along with it, please understand, like we have in the United States, they're very particular and very strict with respect to any NSQ adulterated drugs. Strictest of the strict penalty should be imposed on those drug manufacturers if they do that, because it is, we need to value the humanity, along with it, the value of human life. Because when you indulge in profiteering in this way, it is against the basic principles of humanity. That is why, firstly, complete revamping of Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940, along with all the new mechanisms, new practices, new concepts that have come up should be incorporated. Along with it, various stakeholders along should be taken into consideration and how to resolve it. Issues like these, wherever drugs is being sold, action can be taken, a licensing shall be cancelled. These provisions should be incorporated in the Drugs and Cosmetics Act also. This is a basic requirement. That is very important. So when we do this, definitely it will lead to an improvement in the overall sector over here. Let's move ahead. Grounds for divorce. Now, please do not assume that if I put this article, I'm going to tell you how you can take divorce. This is not my intention at all. But why the article is being mentioned here? So that is why I'm discussing this article. So please understand, in the Supreme Court, behavior that causes mental pain to spouse is a ground for divorce. Now, please understand what happened. In this particular article, the man over here, right, he was not staying with his, the wife was not staying with the man, right? And the wife, they were not staying together. Now what was happening is, this was basically led to a lot of problems with it. They had a child also, but again, they were not compatible with each other, whatever be the case. They did not want to stay with each other. The wife had filed a case in the High Court that she wants a like a divorce. In the case, man also says that the problem over here is that he is being ill-treated by the wife. The man over here mentions he is being ill-treated. The reason why the case went is, please understand, ill-treated in High Court. Now, important thing why this case went also, the wife had filed a criminal case against the husband. When the case went to the High Court, the man said, see, the wife is not staying with me. This not staying with her is also a trauma for me, because in spite of the effort from the side of the man to get this wife into the home back and being able to live properly, was not being accepted by the wife. And the High Court granted the permission to the husband that, okay, you can be granted divorce. Over here, now what happened is, the man had basically filed a case where it was a harassment on the part of the man. See, the man said that it is harassment on the part, mental pain that is being given to him by the wife, because she had filed various cases against the man that affected the reputation and integrity of that particular man, that is the husband over here. So by these cases, what has happened, this basically led to loss of respect and honor of the husband. Now what happened? This is what the man said to the High Court. When the man said, the High Court said, okay. Now the women after this, post this, the wife went to Supreme Court. In Supreme Court agreed with the verdict of the the High Court, saying that that the treatment that is being given to the man is giving mental pain, along with it harassing the man, so the divorce shall be granted to the man. And that is what again over here was mentioned in this particular article, that behavior that causes mental pain to spouse is a ground for the divorce. That means mental pain. Now please understand, it is again one of the additions to the various judgments that are given by the Supreme Court. Now we should be analyzing through various acts also that what are the grounds for divorce under which you can basically get a divorce. Let's see the grounds for divorce under the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. Now under this act, the divorce in India can be under the Hindu Marriage Act can be granted. Now please understand, under the Hindu Marriage Act, which all religions you have? You have Sikhs, you have Hindus, you have Buddhist, and you have Jains, right? So these four religions are basically under the gamut of the Hindu Marriage Act. Now what are the grounds? Adultery. Under adultery also, please understand, that means infidelity, a divorce can be granted. Next is cruelty. A spouse can file a divorce in case he or she is subjected to any kind of mental or physical injury that causes danger to life, limb, or health. So this is also one of the grounds which has basically been mentioned over here in the article. So intangible acts of cruelty through mental torture are not judged upon a single but a series of incidents. Certain instances like, let us say, dowry, sexual acts, including under the cruelty. Desertion. If one of the spouses voluntarily abandons his or her partner for at least a period of 2 years, the abandoned spouse can file a divorce case, and because the spouse has abandoned the partner, so the person can basically file a case for divorce. Next, conversion. In case either of the two converts himself or herself into another religion, the other spouse may file a divorce on the case of this ground. That means if one, now please understand, under the Hindu gamut, you have put all these four religions. Other than these religion, like if somebody is, let us say, converting from Buddhism to Hinduism or from Hinduism to Sikhism or whatever be the case, that is not a ground for basically divorce. Other than these four religions, if someone is converting, let us say, Christianity, someone is converting into Islam, in that case, the spouse can file for a divorce. Next is mental disorder. Mental disorder can become a ground for filing a divorce if the spouse of the petitioner suffers from incurable mental disorder, because that means that will impact the mental health of the other spouse also. So that is why this is also a ground. Leprosy. Now this is again a virulent and incurable form of leprosy. A petition can be filed where divorce can be given. Then is venereal diseases. If one of the spouses is suffering from serious disease that easily communicable, let us say AIDS, now that will impact the health of the spouse also. So in that case, divorce can be granted. Renunciation. A spouse is entitled to file a divorce if the other renounces all the worldly affairs and embracing a religious order. That means giving up on everything and going. In that case, a spouse can file a divorce. Not heard alive. If a person is not seen or heard alive by those who are expected to be naturally heard, a person for a continuous period of 7 years, the person is presumed to be dead. And let us say there's a husband and a wife, and husband, let us say, you realize that is somewhere, goes away from the worldly life, and you do not hear about that person for 7 years. Under the legal aspects, under the Hindu Marriage Act also, it's considered to be dead, and in that case you can file a divorce case. Right, now see, ground for divorce, again one more is no resumption of cohabitation. If it becomes a ground for divorce if the couple fails to resume their cohabitation after the court has passed a degree of separation. Now this is also one of the grounds which can be a divorce. Now please understand, there are other things under which only over here, all these things are for men and women both. Please understand, man can also file, female or a wife can also file a divorce, but there are certain cases on which only a wife can file. Please understand, the grounds for divorce in India on which only can be filed by the wife. These are: first, if the husband has indulged in rape, bestiality, or sodomy; if a marriage is solemnized before the Hindu Marriage Act and the husband is again married to another woman in spite of the first wife being alive, and the first wife can seek for divorce; a girl is entitled to file a divorce if she is married before the age of 15 and renounces the marriage before she attains 18. If there is no cohabitation for 1 year and the husband neglects the judgment of maintenance award by the wife by the court, and the wife can contest for divorce. So these are those grounds on which the only wife can file for a divorce. So these are basically divorce. Now let us move ahead under the Muslim Marriage Act. Now please understand, based on the dissolution of the Muslim Marriage Act 1939, a Muslim woman can seek divorce on the following grounds. We have covered the aspect of women over here. First, if the husband failed to provide maintenance to the wife for at least 2 years. Second, the husband has been under imprisonment for 7 or more years. Then also the wife can file for a divorce. A husband is unable to meet the marital obligations. Fourth, if a girl is married before 15 and decides to end the relationship before she turns 18, then also. Fifth, a husband indulges in the act of cruelty, then also a woman can file for a divorce under the dissolution of Muslim Marriage Act 1939. Now, under the Parsi marriage, please understand, the following are the grounds for divorce in India, including the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 and amended in 1988. For example, first, continuous absence of the spouse for 7 years, non-consumption of marriage within 1 year. Now, this is something very interesting over here. Non-consumption of marriage within 1 year. Unsound mind is also one of the dimensions. Pregnancy by some other man. In that case, a man can file for a divorce. Adultery, bigamy, fornication, rape by or any type of such sexual act by a man, let us say, or a woman for that matter, then the other spouse can file for a divorce. Sixth, act of cruelty. Seventh, suffering from some venereal diseases. Eighth, sentence to imprison for 7 years or more. Ninth, desertion for 2 or more years. And 10th, non-resumption of the cohabitation. That is very similar to what was in the Hindu Marriage Act also. So these are the grounds for divorces. So please understand, we are not here to tell you that these are the grounds you can use them. These are just to inform you that what are the grounds in which divorces can be granted. Okay, let's move ahead. Next is UPI duopoly, rise and market vulnerability. Now this is very interesting topic over here. Please understand. This, when we read about an editorial generally, sometimes it might be, they might be dealing with various dimensions, but sometimes it happens they just deal with one dimension and they tend to write a lot on that. That is not important from the perspective of civil services, because we need to know various dimensions in that particular topic. So first, let us understand what the article is saying, and then I'm going to tell you the other dimensions issues associated with it. See, firstly, before I tell you, first thing, understand what UPI is. You all know that you are using this through basically transfer money using the QR codes or the phone number. So what is UPI? UPI is Unified Payment Interface. It is instant real-time payment system to facilitate interbank transactions through the mobile phones, right? We know the JAM system, right? Jan Dhan account, Aadhaar and mobile. This is again JAM, very important dimension. Launched by the National Payment Corporation of India in 2016 in conjunction with the RBI and the Indian Bank Association. It requires all the customers to register with the NPCI through a virtual payment address called the UPI ID. Now, for normal UPI, the transaction limit is 1 lakh per transaction. And again, in a day, in 24 hours, you cannot do more than 1 lakh also. This is also a restriction that is imposed. Now, understand something. What is duopoly and what is with respect to UPI? Let us see briefly with respect to the article, and then I'll go into detail. When you read the word monopoly, right? So it basically means there is one company that is dominating, let us say any, for that matter, let us say any company or any segment. So when I talk about monopoly, we talk about one company dominating the market, right? When I mention about duopoly, see, what does it say? It say duopoly. See, now when I talk about duopoly, it basically talks about there are two companies which are dominating the market. Now, if you see, you would have agreed to that two companies, two major payment gateways, that is Google Pay, and one is Phone Pay. Now, if you see them, these are basically gateways, right? Now, these two are the ones which are dominating the transactions. Majority of the transactions, greater than 90% overall, if you see, are being done by these two payment gateways using their apps in order to transact, right? Very often you will be using these only. Now, because of the Paytm crisis also, earlier it used to contribute a lot to the percentage, but now it has just gone down to less than 7%. Paytm earlier used to occupy the major market share, but because of this financial frauds and what were committed, because of that, it has completely gone down. Now, leaving that apart, what is mentioned over here after having understood UPI is that these two companies, particularly being foreign companies, not Indian companies. PhonePe is backed by Walmart. Google Pay is backed by Google. Both are non-Indian companies. And do you realize that large number of lakhs of crore of payment are lakh or 2.5 lakh crore payments or transactions are done in the month of August itself. Just 1 month. Just imagine the amount of transaction we have done throughout the year, which is going to increase exponentially because of the penetration of UPI will increase. Now, both companies not being Indian, and obviously they have your details also with what transaction you're doing. They'll be using that for advertisements to all the dimensions, which basically, if any of the app stops working, you realize that automatically you people get worried that what is going to happen because the app is not working. So it's creating a dependency also. Now understand. This article over here basically talks about the UPI was with respect to easing of transaction clear. But we were not able to create any indigenous app, or the Indian company for that matter, government also was not able to create it properly. On the other hand, the early entry of Google Pay, Paytm at that time, and PhonePe basically led to a market where they were dominated by these players. And this is creating a lot of challenges. So we will be seeing the challenges from an overall perspective, what the UPI is also facing, and I will cover the challenges that I mentioned in this article also. Now see. Having understood monopoly and duopoly, now you can see the two companies are dominating the UPI and what pressure it can create. First, let us see the overall challenges. Regulation. Regulatory challenge, issue of data protection, financial laws, and compliance challenge. Do you realize the servers of Google are not in India as such? Where are they? They are in United States. They are in other countries where they are going to store your data. So first of all, data protection law is already not in there. It's currently being discussed. Along with it, our data, the financial data of every individual is being stored in the servers of those companies which are not Indian. So there is automatically regulatory challenge that is there. You understand this major problem. Next, dominance of foreign players. You see PhonePe by Walmart has 46.9% of the market share, and Google Pay by GPay by Google has 36.39%. Can you imagine the major share? This is a share with respect to the UPI transactions being done. 46.9 and 30, close to, let us say 50 and 40, 90% are being done by them. So you can just imagine the dependence of Indians on the other players which are foreign in nature. Next is cyber frauds. You know that very well that the cyber frauds are tremendously rising and the cyber attacks taking place. So if your data gets leaked because the servers of Google, or let us say PhonePe, are dealing, who will be responsible for that? Even those leaks take place also. Can you ask for penalty from Google, or let us say Walmart, the parent company of PhonePe? No. That is where again creates a lot of issue. UPI for that matter also, please understand, because of the ease of transaction that is taking place, various frauds arise and people tend to hack your IDs and your OTP being asked. Of late, you have seen the digital arrest concepts taking place. So people who are not aware, that also is a problem. If data leak take place, cyber frauds occur with respect to the company or the backend side, that also creates an issue. That is a problematic issue. Next thing, please understand. Another dimension is limited users. You would be thinking that, oh, UPI is being used by everybody? No. Can you imagine? I have placed a Government of India report over here from the PIB. Only 35 crore people in India are using UPI. What is the population of India? 140 crores. So there's a misconception that everybody is using UPI. No. But can you imagine if those 2.5 lakh crore transactions in 1 month are taking place through the people who are using? Just imagine slowly the internet penetration will take place, smartphone penetration will increase, the number of transactions that will take place. It is good, but again, the dependence on the other players. So where are our players? Or the our companies, the Indian companies that should be there? Or why government is not facilitating over here? You realize this? That is where the problem lies. So the penetration is very less than 30%. That itself is creating so many issues. Just imagine when it goes to 90%. Next is risk of degree in competition innovation. Please understand, when you are seeing Google Pay by Google, do you realize that Google is one that is known for curbing competition because it tends to acquire the companies to create a monopoly. Along with it, we all know that Walmart is also a big player that is backing PhonePe. Because of that, the new companies that are coming up basically do not find a market share because they realize that Google will again cripple their market. That is why over here, a little bit of government intervention is also very important. And this leading to decrease in the competition innovation on the side of the fintech sector, who are facilitating these particular gateways. Next is limitation on the transaction amount. You would be seeing in 24 hours, maximum what is the amount? 1 lakh. Again, in some others, it is even less. So what happens is that, again, this is for the security measures also, but you realize that you cannot make hefty payments also via UPI. That is also a limitation that is being coined by many, because supposingly you have already made a payment, after that you want to make even small payment, you're not able to do because there is restriction. So that also creates a problem with respect to the UPI. Now, let us see the significance also. You realize that UPI, this segment of the fintech sector is accelerated to $6 billion in last 2 years. This has basically led to what? Financial inclusion, cost effectiveness. The new trinity of JAM UPI, Unified Logistics Interface, will be a revolutionary aspect. JAM is Jandhan account, Aadhaar and mobile. UPI is Unified Payment Interface. ULI is Unified Logistic Interface. So what basically that leads to is, will lead to greater penetration of UPI and greater usage and ease. Along with it, you know that it is raising financial inclusion, because very often what happens that everybody is going to have a bank account also. People have also, but it will ease the transactions. And along with it, the important news is that UPI is going global also now. UK, you see various countries are going to adopt. UK, France, UAE, Nepal, Oman, Singapore, Bhutan, Malaysia. These are or in the process of adopting it. So this is basically linking the whole world also through the payment aspect. So now this will again lead to what? An opportunity for the Indian companies also to basically increase their footprints in the various countries, in the African or the developing countries, or for that matter, developed countries also. That is not being done. That is why Google and Walmart backed PhonePe are the ones who are dominating. And that also raises the various dimensions which we have discussed. This was important for your analysis. Let's move ahead. Main question of the day: what are the reasons for the rise in divorce in the Indian society? 15 marker. You can basically attempt this. Prelims topics: ISRO Spadex, you would have seen today. What is Spadex? Please, because its importance is because it is a docking experiment. In the future, when we are going to have our own space station, over there, let us say a space station cannot be created in one go. Some part would be sent, then another part would be sent, and that has to be docked. Dock means you have to basically air vacuum links that are created so that you are able to connect the various parts of a space station. So those experiments, we are right now doing the experiments in order to reach that level. So that is why you realize Spadex is space docking experiment, a mission by ISRO to develop autonomous docking technology. Now, these are the experiments that are being done so that in the future, when we create our own space station, we are able to do that. Importance of docking. Docking is crucial. Managing space stations, undertaking complex space projects. Astronauts traveling to space station depend upon docking to connect their spacecraft safely. Obviously, when there are space stations, if you have to connect your spacecraft, those are the docking technology that is there, basically that it creates a vacuum room where the spacecraft and the space station basically connect in a precision manner. A lot of complication with technology as well as softwares are there which connect them, dock them, and that vacuum space is removed and filled with oxygen so that people can move here and there using the docking. It enables the construction of larger space structures. Spadex is key to India's long-term space exploration goals. History of docking: Soviet Union achieved them in 1967, United States in 1975. Docking technology has evolved significantly, becoming more automated. Earlier it has to be done because at that time human intervention was also very important. But now it is automated, more of softwares basically doing it. Next, what is SpaceX works? The mission involves two vehicles, a chaser and the target, coming together and connecting in space. This will test how the combined spacecraft maintains stability and control over the docking. The two spacecraft will later separate and perform the additional task. So, Spadex mission details: ISRO has acquired 2 satellites, each weighing 400 kg for the Spadex mission. Single rocket will launch both the satellites in space, placing them in slightly different orbits. Satellites should carefully align with each other and perform the space handshake. Space handshake means they're connecting to each other. So what is the significance? Unique because focus on developing the indigenous technology, along with it developing a mechanism through which you are able to develop your own docking technology rather than procuring it from US or USA or USSR, or presently what we know as Russia. It is crucial for India's future space mission, including the Gaganyaan. So these are the dimensions. Clear? Let's move ahead. Private member bill. Now see, what is private member bill? See, simple words, a bill that is introduced in any of the Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha, for that matter state legislature, not by a minister, is known as a private member bill. Simple words. So a member of parliament who isn't a minister is called a private member. So one who is not a minister is a private member. Whether of the ruling government or the opposition doesn't make any difference. It will be a private member. The aim of a private member bill is to highlight the issues and gaps in the current legal framework that individual MPs believe should be introduced. So, thus it represents the opposition party's stance on public issues. Please understand, generally the private member bill is introduced from, or mostly I would say, is introduced from the side of the opposition. Why? A person who is, let us say, from the ruling party only, if he tries to introduce a bill, there's a possibility, because the government is ruling, would say you are going against the instructions or guidelines of the government or the whip, and they are generally refrained. So generally the private member bills are introduced from the side of the opposition, so that in order to tell that the government is not working properly, and in order to question them, or in order to even target the government also, the private member bills can be introduced. So simple words, private member bill is that bill which is not introduced by a minister. Remember, it can be from the side of the opposition, it can be from the side of the government member of parliament who is not a minister. That also is a private member bill, so do not get confused in that. However, the member of parliaments of both the ruling party as well as the opposition can introduce the private member bill. This is what is being told to you, right? Drafting: the private members responsible for drafts it, and introduces in requires a 1 month notice. So before you have to introduce, you give a 1 month notice that I'll be introducing this particular bill. Rules: the government bills can be introduced and discussed on any day, while private member bills are limited to only Fridays. Otherwise, everybody will start introducing the bills and it will become cumbersome to discuss the topics. House rejecting the private member bill does not affect the parliamentary confidence of the government and does not necessitate any resignation also. Moving ahead, post-discussion action. After the discussion, the member responsible for a bill can withdraw it as a minister's request and proceed with the passage. The last private member bill passed by both the houses was in 1970. It was a Supreme Court Enlargement of Criminal Appellate Jurisdiction Bill of 1968. Notable private member bills. So far, 14 private member bills have become law, like the Proceedings of Legislature Protection of Publication Bill 1957, Salaries and Allowances, Indian Penal Code Amendment are some of the examples. So this is a difference between a private member bill and public bill. Public bill is that which is introduced by a minister, and the private member is which is introduced by a non-minister. So, introduction: either house of the parliament, both can be introduced in either house. Introduced by any member other than a minister, public bill by a minister. Chance of approval: lesser chance, greater chance because it has the confidence of the government. Difference: implication and rejection of the bill, no effect on the government position, it can lead to a no confidence. Notice period: 1 month notice, only a 7-day notice in public bill. Drafting of the bill: members who are introducing will only draft it. Over here, the concerned departments are the one who are drafting it. So this is basically the difference over here. Let's move ahead. Vemban Lake. So Vemban Lake is the largest lake in Kerala and the longest lake in India. It is multiple names. It is known by various names in different regions. Vemban Kayal in North region, Vemban Kutanad, Pumanada Lake in Alappuzha, Kochi Lake in Kochi area. So a lot of names are there. Sources of the lake is fed by 4 rivers, Minachil, Achankovil, Pamba, and Manimala. These are the 4 rivers which basically feed this particular lake. Geographical importance, the lake is separated from the Arabian Sea by a narrow barrier island, contributing to a significant backwater which is attracting a lot of tourism also in this region. Then you have Vallamkali Nehru Trophy boat race that basically takes place over here. Very important with respect to the cultural aspect, which can be asked in your prelims also. It is a Ramsar site also. It was introduced in the Ramsar Convention in 2002 and recognized as a wetland of national importance. It is the second largest Ramsar site in India, following the Sundarban in the West Bengal. Next, Kumarkom Bird Sanctuary, located in the eastern shores of Vembanad Lake Sanctuary, attracts migratory birds. So this is also a question that can be asked in a sentence in your preliminary examination. Pangong Lake. Pangong is an endorheic land, that means lake, that means it is landlocked. It is partly in India's Ladakh and partly in Tibet. Total area of 600 kilometers square. Cultural features and name of the lake reflects the mixed heritage. The Pangong in Ladakhi means existence concavity. The word so means is Tibetan is a lake. Again, it is a Tethys geosyncline. So that means the Tethys used to exist earlier, before we saw that the Indian plate basically attached or hit with the Eurasian plate. So geosynclinal, what we realize is that a geosynclinal shape, this was a lake-like structure, a water body, like a Tethys that was present, and when the Indian plate came and just hit with the Eurasian plate, so this is the remnants of that lake that is present here. So that is why it is also known as a Tethys geosyncline. After that it was formed. The geographical features, Karakoram mountain range, which crosses the Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, and India, with heights of over 6,000 meters, including K2. The world highest peak ends in the north bank of the Pangong. So southern bank is 2 highest broken mountain slopes towards the Sapru Lake. The lake's water, while crystal clear, is brackish in nature, so it is undrinkable. So one should be clear that it is not freshwater lake, it is brackish lake. This is very important. Many people think it is a freshwater lake, it is a brackish lake. Please note that very carefully. Who controls the Pangong? Nearly 2/3 of the lake is controlled by China, just about 45 kilometers under Indian control. LAC, line of actual control, runs north-south, cuts the western part of the lake. Indo-China have set unsettled borders, and perception of LAC offers basically differs from place to place, because again China tends to claim a larger part of it, and so does India because of its territorial integrity. Next, moving ahead, multiple choice question. Question 1 with options. Answer. Question 2 with options. Answer. Question 3 with options. Answer. Question 4 with options. Answer. Question 5 with options. Answer. This was a discussion on the Hindu from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it and enjoyed it. We'll be meeting tomorrow and continue the discussion. Take care and Jai Hind.